everyone for joining. We're so glad that you're here. Welcome. We're going to dedicate today's learning to the safe return of all of our hostages, to the healing of all the hostages, to the safe return of all the chayalim, and to the healing of all of Am Yisrael. Purim Adar, and Purim is the best time for Vina Hapachu, to transform Me'evel, from mourning to Simcha to joy, etc. Thanks. Okay. So there's a teaching, last week was Parsha Tetzaveh. There's this beautiful teaching. We're going to go through the story of Esther and see this crazy metamorphosis of Esther. And this, if you look in your sources, you will follow along. In last week's Parsha, in Parsha Tetzaveh, we have the very first pasuk where Hashem says, "V'ata tetzaveh b'nei Israel," you should command the Jewish people, "V'yikhu elecha," and they should bring to you shemen zayit, kasis lama'ar. Kasis lama'ar means crushed for lighting. And we learn from this, especially in Tu B'Shvat, that we are compared to the olive, that just like when the olive is crushed, its purest oil comes out, so too we, unfortunately, when we are squeezed and crushed, our greatest light comes out. When we go through a challenge, when we go through an oppression, we become even greater. In Egypt, when we were oppressed, we came out even stronger, and throughout history, whenever we've been squeezed as a nation, we come out stronger, and individually as well, we know that when we go through a personal struggle or challenge, just like the olive is squeezed and then it can shine, or the grape is squeezed and then you have the oil, the wine, and the grape juice, also us, when we're squeezed, the greatest light inside of us comes out, and we reveal inside of ourselves powerful lights that wouldn't have been revealed had we not been squeezed. And although it's challenging in the moment, we end up coming back and looking back at all of the greatness that came from it. In the story of Queen Esther, we see the exact same thing happening. If we look, and I noticed this one year, when I analyzed this Esther, we see as if there's like two different Esthers. If you look at Esther's personality and how she's described, self-described, because Esther is the one who wrote the Megillah, how she describes herself before she went through the tremendous challenge, she describes herself as a very timid, normal, typical person, following what Mordechai tells her. You'll see constantly, we'll go through the sources together, where it says whatever Mordechai told her she did. She didn't have a lot of inner strength. She describes herself as only overcoming and getting wherever she went to because of Mordechai. And then we see this totally new Esther emerge after her challenge. And it doesn't just happen automatically. If someone goes through a challenge, sometimes in the reflection later on, they look back and they're like, oh wow, like I know for myself that I am who I am only because of the darkness Hashem has put me through. We've all have our challenges. For me, it's different than yours. Through the mental health challenges I've been through, I know that I like to think of myself as relatable, raw, authentic, compassionate, understanding, only because, and I would never have been this way, and I wasn't this way prior to the struggles. When I was in it, it was the darkest place in the world. But now looking back, I'm able to be grateful and know that the only reason that I have the things that I'm most proud of in myself are because of the challenges I went through. And so let's go briefly through the story of Esther. In your sources, I think my husband printed the wrong source. Okay, it's okay. I updated it a little bit. I just wrote down the titles, but it's okay. The first part, we have Esther 1.0. We have Esther, it says Vatila Kach Esther. So the first four, I believe it's the first four, their Megillah is 10 prakim, 10, what do you say parak in English? Chapters long. And I urge you to, when you're reading the Megillah, to notice yourself this first Esther in the first four chapters, and then I think it's either by chapter 4 or 6 where this totally different Esther emerges. And so I like to think of it as Esther describing two different Queen Esthers. And so Esther 1.0, it says she was taken against her will, despite her attempts to hide. She's very powerless. She's like victim. She's like a victim Esther. It says, again, all the while, Esther did not divulge her race and ancestry. Why? For Mordechai had instructed her. So she's a follower. She's taking instructions from others. She's following orders. And again, it says in Parak Beis, for Mordechai, again, it repeats, because she did it. Why? Because Mordechai told her not to. So she's not really making decisions. She doesn't seem very empowered. She seems like she's describing herself as someone who, I did this because Mordechai told me to. Then she says, Mordechai, then again, when the virgins were gathered a second time, Achashverosh was pressuring her to reveal who she was, and Mordechai gave the suggestion to Achashverosh to gather her one a second time to make her jealous, to get her to urge him, hoping he'll pick someone else. And again, it says that he was pressuring her. He took off taxes in her honor. He built buildings in her honor. He named things after her to pressure her to tell him who she was, and she wouldn't say. But what does it say? That only because of the help of Mordechai, who was sitting at the gate, right, giving her that koach, was she able to be strong. So her strength, her inner strength, is she's ascribing it to an outer source, an outer resource. Again, in Pasuk Chaf, she would still not divulge her ancestry as Mordechai had instructed her. Again, she's saying, I'm taking instructions. Indeed, this is the line. Esther followed Mordechai's instructions just as she had done while under his care. Esther is letting us know that I'm continuing to follow other people's instructions just like I did when I was in his house. Okay, then we have this, the challenge of Esther. She gets chosen. She goes through one of the most painful challenges that anyone has to endure. This is a 4 or 5 year gap from when she was taken from Achashverosh, consistently raped. She was in love. The Chachamim tell us that Mordechai was married to her from the word Besa. Her household means her husband, that she and Mordechai were in love, and she was raped by Achashverosh. It says she would go from the bosom of Achashverosh to Tovel in the mikvah and then to go be with her husband Mordechai. The reason she was still able to be with him is because when a woman is taken against her will, she's still allowed to be with her husband. But if she willingly marries someone, halachically she can't go back or cheats on her husband or marries another person, even if they're divorced. She's not allowed to remarry her original husband. And so because that's how we know that she was violated against her will. She goes to this horrible place, and there's this parak of Tehillim Chaf Beis, the Chachamim tell us was written by Esther, and it's a heart-wrenching parak of Tehillim. I think I brought it for you, but I'm not sure. It's the last source. Tehillim Chaf Beis was written by Esther, and one of the psukim is, Eli, Eli, my God, Lama azavtani, why have you abandoned me? Rachaik mishuasi, you're so far from my Yeshua, from my salvation, from my deliverance. Divrei shagasi, and you're so far from my anguished roaring. This is her pain. This is Esther's pain. And the Chachamim say, they break it down. They say she called out, she came to the palace, and they go back and they say that Esther was one of the 7 women who had nevuah. She was blessed to be communicating with Hashem. And when she entered Achashverosh's palace, the nevuah left her. So she called out, Eli, Hashem, where did you go? I need you now more than ever. And she has no answer. Then she calls it again, Eli, again, Hashem. And Hashem doesn't answer her again. She hears nothing. And then she says, Lama azavtani, why did you abandon me? I need you now. I need to hear you. I need your spirit with me. And again, there's no answer. And then she says, Rachaik mishuasi, where is my miracle? She's being tortured. She's being raped. She doesn't know why she's here yet. There is no decree of Haman. I think Dora told me this, that there was a 4 year gap from when she was taken to the decree of Haman. So she doesn't know yet that the Jewish people are in danger. The Jewish people are not in danger. So she just thinks, Hashem has forsaken me. He caused me to be raped and to be taken away from my love of my life. And I'm just like an orphan girl. I already had so much challenges. And now you're not even communicating with me. All the avos, the mahais, they had miracles. They had miracles when they called to you. Where's my nace? She's